want to talk about this project, which is joint work with a few collaborators. Nick and I work for a public institution, so I should say that the views expressed here are the views of the authors and not those of the Financial Conduct Authority or the Bank of England. This project is on Help to Buy equity loans, with which you are all familiar with. This is a big scheme by the government to improve the affordability of housing. And in this research project, we aim at answering those three questions. What are the characteristics of buyers who use the scheme? Would they have afforded the same house without the scheme? And who repays equity loans and when? So the data we use comes from two sources. The equity loan data comes from the Ministry of Housing. We have information on all equity loans that were issued since the scheme was started. We also have information on which ones of these loans were repaid already. Half of the repaid loans were because the house was sold, and the other half was because the borrower decided to pay back the loan to the government. The other source of data is the FCA product sales data on mortgage originations. We have information on age, income, and mortgage type of everyone that basically took on a residential mortgage. By matching these two data sets, we can go and look people that entered the Help to Buy scheme, what sort of borrowers they are, and how they compare to other people who didn't enter the scheme. So the first question that we want to investigate is about the characteristics of buyers who use the scheme. Now, there are different ways in which we can cut the data. So here I chose to focus on the area, the region of the data around the £600,000 threshold. So below 600,000, you are eligible for the Help to Buy scheme. If you buy a new build, above, you are not. We analyze different variables. The first chart is about the size of the deposit. Now, you see that as soon as you jump above the threshold of the Help to Buy scheme, the average deposit goes up by £100,000. And this can only be driven by the scheme because everything else around that threshold stays the same in check. This is not the case with income. Income doesn't jump as much, so it's really a question of deposit. Some other variables we looked at is the age of the borrower and the percentage of first-time buyers. On average, around this threshold, the borrowers are 2 years younger, and the percentage of transactions by first-time buyers goes from more than 75% in the area that is eligible for the scheme to around 55% as soon as we go above 600,000. Another question we look at is whether the borrowers that use Help to Buy could have afforded the same property without the scheme. So we analyze all loan-to-value ratios of all mortgages that were issued to buy a new build property below 600,000 in England. Here on the left-hand side, you have people that didn't use the scheme, and you see that the most common loan-to-value ratios are 75–85%. It's very uncommon to buy a new build with a 95% LTV. On the right-hand side, you have the same chart for people that did use the scheme. Obviously, because these people have access to equity loans, the LTVs are actually lower, but we also drew the red line, which combines the normal mortgage and the equity loan to get an idea of what's the overall leverage of these people. And if you do so, because most of these borrowers just take the minimum deposit of 5%, everyone, well, 60% are at 95%, so very high combined leverage position. We also looked at loan-to-income ratios. Now, for people that don't use the scheme, you see a smooth distribution and some bunching around 4.5, which is the limit, the recommended limit by the Financial Policy Committee of the Bank of England. We did the same thing for Help to Buy equity loan borrowers. Now, the blue line is also basically stops at 4.5, but if you were to combine the mortgage and the equity loan, you will get that approximately half of the borrowers are above the 4.5. So the conclusion is, without the scheme, these people wouldn't be able to buy that house that they bought. The last question we look at is how people repay those mortgages. So we have this information. we plot the cumulative percentage of loans that were repaid, either because the loan was repaid and the person stayed in the same household because the house was sold. Now, in the first case, you see that the repayment rates jump after 2 and 3 years, because most of these borrowers have 2 or 3 years fixed mortgages, and then when the mortgage is about to be the fixed part of the mortgage terminates, these people make a decision to remortgage and maybe pay back the equity loan. For sales, there is no such pattern. Who repays the loans? Well, we've seen that it's on average people that live in areas with a higher house price appreciation. Maybe they get a better, their LTV, implied LTV improves, and therefore they're more likely to repay. Similarly, people that experience income growth are more likely to repay. Where does the money come from? Well, they remortgage and they extract equity. So we are able to measure with our data the average equity extraction for people that remortgage. People that don't repay the equity loan on average extract zero equity. People that do repay their equity loan, you see there is a good overlap between the amount of equity extraction and the amount of equity loan they still have to pay. These are the 3 findings that I wanted to share with you. These are my conclusions, which just repeat what I just said. I only want to add that we are waiting. We don't have yet the data for the people that spent 5 years in the scheme and are starting this year to pay a higher interest rate on the equity loan, and it will be very interesting to see what happens there. Thank you very much.
Generally, what are repayment rates looking like? Because I thought with your repayment graphs, the absolute numbers look quite small.
So we use these different cohorts depending on the year in which the equity loan was originated. So I think the most interesting ones are the first ones, because for instance, the people that took on an equity loan in 2013, we already have 4 years. So in terms of repayment without sales, we are 10%, and repayment with the sale 15%, so in total 25%. So in 4 years, 25% of these equity loans have already been repaid. I don't know whether that's a lot or not, but it's a data point that it's interesting to have.
Thank you for that. That was a lot of really interesting data. One of the criticisms against Help to Buy is that the developers who benefit from it inflate the price. Is there any research that you've done or you will be doing to see whether that analysis proves to be true or not?
Yeah, so it's a good question. We have looked a little bit into this because it's obviously a question that comes up quite often. I have to say that it's something that is very difficult to prove because I mean, the ideal comparison would be between two new builds, because the new build market is a market per se, and then you want to see whether the property bought with Help to Buy is bought at a higher price. So that's one way to look at it. Or you could look at the new build market against the rest of the market. That would also be tricky. Because since the crisis, my understanding is that the new build market has changed a lot, and many things have been, you had it for
you did some really fascinating analysis where you put them into cohorts below 600,000 as well. I think that might be quite insightful. You see what price appreciation has been in those cohorts.
Yeah.
Great. We've got time for one more question. Right. Let's. Oh, sorry.
It was interesting when you demonstrated where the money came from for buying the shares. Did you also do an analysis on where the money usually comes from for Help to Buy for the initial deposits? It would be interesting to know how much is from kind of family and how much is from.
Yeah, this is also a question that comes up a lot, and it would be really interesting. The problem is with the data we have. So basically, what we see is a mortgage has been originated with this deposit. Or an equity loan was originated, we see in the ministry data, the same deposit. There's no easy way to, we would need names of people and tracing, I mean, it would really be difficult to measure, but I agree it's really interesting.
All right. Thank you very much.